Happy Monday, guys. Welcome to a brand new week of learning as we continue what we've set out to at the beginning of the school years to learn. Here are our power words this week for this week's story selection. Now, you don't have the assignment for your story selection until tomorrow unless you decide to do it today anyway. But I want to introduce your power words to you before I go into our lead-in book for this week's story. So the first word is sharp, and if you don't mind repeating the word after me, just like we do in the classroom. Sharp, prickle, thorns, extra, poke, nasty, sensitive, and attack. And what I have assigned for you today is just to look in the back of your number 4 reader that you have, and I want you to look in the glossary, and I want you to look up each of these words. There are about 8 of them. And I want you to look at them, and I want you to read their meanings and be familiar with them, because you will have a power words match this week. But I want you to be able to recognize them from the story tomorrow as you read the story selection. Okay? Now I'm going to begin reading to you this week's book, our read-in book to lead in, and it's called The Patchwork Garden, written by Diane de Anda and Oksana Kamarskaya. I hope I pronounced it right, but you get it. Anyway, so you have this also. I have it assigned for our assignment if you want to go back, and I hope you do want to go back and read it, but I'm going to read it aloud to you. In memory of my father, Salvador de Anda, who had the magic touch for growing vegetables with zucchini the size of watermelons. This is what the author, she has dedicated this book to her father. Abuela sat near the window where she could see the tiny stitches she was making on the bright green square of cloth. She smiled because it was the last square she needed to finish the patchwork quilt. Abuela liked to tell stories about when she was a little girl. Tonya loved the stories she told. When I was a girl, my family lived where there was lots of empty land. I planted a vegetable garden on my own little square patch of land. I can still taste the fresh tomatoes I grew. They taste much sweeter than the ones you buy in the store, said Abuela. I wish I could have my very own vegetable garden, replied Tonya, but there's nothing but cement around our apartment building. All you need is a little patch of land, and you can grow some tomatoes, spinach, and broccoli, or even squash and carrots, encouraged Abuela. Said Tonya. There's a little patch of dirt behind the church, but it's full of weeds. That's a good sign, said Abuela. That means the soil is soft enough for plants to grow once you take out all the weeds. The next morning, Tonya and Abuela went to the church and talked to Father Anselmo. It sounds like a great idea, said Father Anselmo. There will be beautiful green plants instead of the dry, ugly weeds. And you can take all the vegetables you want, added Tonya. Ah, said Father Anselmo, thinking of fresh salads and steamed vegetables. Beautiful and healthy. Later that afternoon, Tonya, her big brother Carlos, and her father stood on the little square of dirt. Tonya and Carlos pulled and yanked out weeds. They used small hand shovels called trowels to dig out the bigger ones. You might have trowels at your home that your parents use for digging in the dirt as they plant flowers or in their flower pots. Then their father used his big shovel and dug into the dirt. We need to turn the soil and soften it up for planting, he said as he worked. They also added some fertilizer to the soil to help the seeds and plants grow. When they were done, they took big cans of water from that pickup truck and wet the soil. After they finished, they picked up Abuela and drove to the garden store. Abuela helped Tonya pick. Sorry about that, guys. Abuela helped Tonya pick out packages of carrots, spinach, and squash seeds. Then they chose little containers with small sprouting broccoli plants and tiny green tomato plants. The lady at the cash register handed Tonya cards on small sticks with pictures of the vegetables she had bought. This tells you all the vitamins you will get from the different plants in your garden, she explained with a smile. The next day, Abuela and Tonya arrived at the little patch with dirt with plants and seeds and their watering cans. First, we must put on our straw hats to protect us from the sun while we work, warned Abuela. Tonya was so excited she could hardly tie the ribbon that helped keep the hat on her head. Have you ever been excited like that? I know I have. Now, we dig the holes for the seeds and plants, said Abuela as she handed Tonya a trowel. It was mine when I was a girl your age. It has planted so many seeds it can almost do it by itself, laughed Abuela. Don't you know she had a wonderful laugh? For the zucchini, squash, and spinach, they dug small holes with about an inch. They dropped in the seeds, then covered them over with the dirt they had taken out. Vines will grow with flowers on little stems that will turn into big green squash. Spinach will cover the ground with dark green leaves. Green vegetables are filled with vitamins, said Abuela. The carrots needed more work. Tonya and Abuela had to loosen up the dirt so the carrots could grow long and deep. Carrots are roots. We need to make room for them to grow underground. Carrots keep our eyes healthy and help protect us from getting sick, explained Abuela. Finally, they took all the little tomato plants out of their small plastic pots, tickled the soil around the roots to loosen them up, and dug holes just the right size. Tonya planted the soil around each plant with her hands until the dirt was nice and flat. Then she stuck the cards with a picture of a tomato and a silvery green flower of broccoli in front of the row of plants. Each card said vitamin C in big letters and listed more vitamins in smaller letters. When she was done, Abuela sprinkled the garden with her big green watering can. I know one more thing that needs a sprinkle, said Tonya, stretching her arms and hands toward Abuela. They both laughed as Abuela poured out the last of the water and watched little rivers of mud roll down Tonya's arms and through her fingers. Ooh, I bet that was nice and cool. Abuela walked Tonya home each day after school right past their little patch of garden, and each day they would sprinkle the thirsty plants with their watering cans and pull out many weeds that had sneaked in between their plants. In a few short weeks, the garden was green with lacy carrot tops in a row, vines of squash curling on the ground, and bushy green tomato plants. Wrinkled green spinach leaves lined the edge of the garden, and broccoli flowers bloomed. As the plants grew, more and more of the children and their parents passing by on their way home from school stopped to look and talk with Tonya and Abuela about the garden. I wish we could have a garden, sighed many of the children. I wish we had a place for a garden, the parents sighed back.